Hey students, welcome back to Tutorial Tuesday. Today we are learning about Pablo Picasso and the Cubist movement that he was a part of. So Pablo Picasso lived in Spain. He was a Spanish artist and he led the Cubism movement. And there are actually two types of Cubism movements that he was a part of. He was a part of the Analytic movement and the Synthetic movement. The biggest difference between those two movements is that the Analytic movement was more flat. The paintings were more flat and they're actually made with paint. And then once he started getting into the Synthetic movement, there was a lot more collage, meaning he used multimedia, paint, music, wood, just different kinds of mediums within his art pieces. So let's talk about the Analytic movement. The Analytic Cubist movement, I originally thought was like abstract art, but I was wrong. Abstract art has no subject, no meaning, it's just up for interpretation. But in the Analytic Cubist movement, in Cubism, there's a clear subject. Sometimes you can see that subject pretty clearly, and sometimes it's mostly unclear, but the intent is still there. That subject and intent is still there, so it's not really an abstract piece of art. So what do I mean by subject? So let's say we have a subject of a ukulele. Actually, a lot of the Cubist paintings out there have a guitar or a mandolin or some kind of a string instrument in them, because in the Cubist movement, they actually wanted identifiable details. So if I were to look at this, I would look at the identifiable details in this part of the ukulele. Those 4 strings are identifiable details, that circle going through those 4 strings, and then the neck of the guitar and up here, those are all really identifiable details. And the point is to get those basic shapes in there and look at them with overlapping planes. So like this would be one plane, and then this is another. So basically those planes are like the different perspectives that you would actually look at that object, okay? And so in Cubist art, you're looking at it from multiple different planes, multiple different perspectives, and putting it all in one piece of art. So basically there's like all sorts of movement that's happening within that piece of art, okay? So you're getting all those different perspectives. The other thing that's happening within the Analytic movement, the pieces were monochromatic. Monochromatic means the same color palette. So there's different values in it and different tones, but it's all the same color palette. So mono means one and chromo means color. So one color, monochromatic. So basically there's repetitive use of those basic shapes in different planes or different perspectives, okay? And it's monochromatic. And so it has just kind of this, it uses the whole spectrum of the piece of paper or whatever it is, canvas that you're using to paint on or to color on or whatever it is that you're choosing to do. There's a lot of linear qualities that go through it, and so it almost looks as though there's a bunch of cubes in the painting. But if you look really closely, you can see identifiable subjects, identifiable basic shapes that are repeating, and it really brings together a really nice composition. So we are going to be using the subject of a ukulele today. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. And I also have a guitar that I'm gonna use as my inspiration and my subject for today. There will be an answer, let it be. The other thing that I'm going to include in this is coffee. And I chose music and coffee because I've got 100 million reasons to walk away. But baby, I just need one good one to stay. It's a rainy day today, and rainy days, music and coffee seem to be what gets me through. And so I'm looking for the identifiable shapes of coffee as well. Now, obviously, the coffee is liquid, so it doesn't have a shape. It takes the shape of the form which holds it, the vessel that holds it. So the identifiable shapes that I have with coffee are a mug and the circle that's in the top of the mug that you drink the coffee out of, and the handle that you hold the mug with. And then you can't see it now because it's since cooled down, but there's actually identifiable shapes within the steam that comes up off of the coffee. And so those are some things that I'm going to infuse in my art for today. Okay, so we're ready to get started on the art for today. You can see I have my supplies. I have a pencil, I have my oil pastels, my coffee for inspiration of its shape, but also as a little fuel to get me through. Today I'm actually going to be using glue as a part of this to help separate our shapes and get that cubist feel, and then my sketchbook. So let's start in my sketchbook. And I've actually created the basic shapes that I'm going to focus on in my cubist piece today that's going to have a guitar, uke, basic shapes to it, and my coffee. I really just wanted 3 basic shapes that I could focus on and really put into my piece. So the other thing that I need to do is really think about the plane, the different perspective that those shapes are in, right? And so like this shape, actually the body of the string instrument, you know, you can look at it from the side. So if I were to take my string instrument and look at it from the side, I always suggest finding inspiration from your to look at an actual object to give you that inspiration that you're looking for, right? Or you can turn the shape a little bit on its side and get it a little distorted, right? And so same thing with those lines, the strings with the circle that's in the middle there, okay? We can look at it from, you know, if you have this perspective or you're looking at it from the top, you kind of see this and you get even more of a distortion in there. So those are some of the things that I'm going to be exploring today with my piece. And then with my coffee cup, you know, I can do a bird's eye view looking down into my coffee mug, and I have this guy going down the side here. Okay, so I'm going to take these basic shapes, put those aside. And then but visible so that I can see them. And I'm actually using some black cold press watercolor paper today. This is really nice paper, and you don't have to just use it for watercolor. I'm using pastels, oil pastels, as my form of medium today on this paper. Boy, it's really glued in here. All right, so part of the reason why I'm choosing this for my canvas of sorts today is that I like the way the oil pastels pop off of the dark background. So I'm choosing this for my background today. So what's going to happen is I'm just going to go in and start looking at these basic shapes and start thinking about, if I were to have my ukulele, what it would look like if I turned it onto its side, and what would all of those shapes and repetition kind of look like. So I can take my uke and have that as my initial shape that I have here, and I can take and do just my basic shape there, so we know, okay, that would be the basic shape. And it's not exactly symmetrical, which isn't totally terrible, but I'm gonna kind of bring that in a little bit. And then I'm going to look at the next angle, and I'm going to repeat that shape. So you can see that my shape changed as I went along. And then I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm actually going to change my composition, and now I'm going to focus on those 4 strings. So I'm going to bring it across across the top. I might even angle it down here. So I think I'm going to start it here. And I have my 4 strings. And I'm going to look at it from kind of a different angle, bringing it down this way. I'm going to make this one a little bigger to add in some interest there. And those strings are actually going to go off to the side. So there's one over here. And they're closer together. Okay, and then really off to the side now. I'm gonna bring this guy up here. There's like one string right there that I'm bringing down. I'm gonna bring these all the way down here. Okay, now I'm going to get in the top part of my ukulele, I think is the appropriate way to say that. So I'm actually going to make this a bigger part of my art up here. Really kind of bring that composition together by bringing just a little bit down there. I'm just going to keep my simple shape like that. And I'm going to actually repeat that shape down here with not too much changed, except for it's just down on the bottom. Okay, so there is the beginning part of it. And now I'm going to bring in my coffee, and I really want to get those lines that I see that come off the top of my coffee cup. Bring those lines in, which means that my cup then comes down here. And I really like how I have this part here, and I'm going to bring another circle, or it's actually more of an ellipse that comes down here. And I'm going to bring like my mug down this area down here. My dog is snoring. He's having a great time. Okay, so I want to repeat these lines up in this area up in here. And I'm going to repeat them down here. And I actually really want to get another perspective of these guitar strings over there. So one thing that artists do is they take a look at their composition and they see, okay, where are my lines? What do I have going on in these? Is there any negative space where there's nothing happening? And how can I bring in a basic shape that might fill that negative space? So I'm going to bring in a shape there. And I'm also going to bring in the bottom part of the guitar down here. So I get that roundness of the guitar. So I have those lines in there. And really what I'm going to do now that I've kind of sketched it out, I can see, okay, which lines do I want to keep? Which lines am I not really interested? I might keep all of them. I don't know. I'm kind of still working on that. But part of the project today and what we're going to do is I'm going to use some glue, and I'm going to just put the glue down in the lines that I want to keep, because that's going to act as almost a barrier, or it's going to give some texture to our piece that once we start putting our oil pastels into it and putting those colors and those contrasting colors in there, it's really going to make the piece pop. So I have to decide what parts of this do I want to keep. I might decide that I want to keep all of it. I don't know yet. I'm not really sure. It's kind of busy for me right now. So, but artists, you know, have the ability to take what they have and they get to make it what they want. So I know that I want this outline of the guitar here. And I'm noticing that I'm going to get some different textures in there. I'm going to roll with it. I like the fact that my art changes as I go, and it forces me to really think outside the box and think about that that's not necessarily a mistake that was made. It was a happy little accident that I need to change into something else. So I'll channel my inner Bob Ross and roll with it. So I am going to let that dry, and I'll come back, and that's when I'll start getting in some of my oil pastels. All right, we're back, and I've let it dry just a little bit. There are still a little bit, you can see the white glue, that's gonna disappear. But what you see is it's all nice and clear on here, and there's actually some really nice texture on there. So now I'm gonna come in with my monochromatic pastels, so I'm gonna stay in the brown hues. I chose the browns. Yeah, there's gonna be a little bit of kind of a mustard yellow and a red brown, but mostly it's the brown hues because I went with the colors of my ukulele and my guitar and of coffee, and so I wanted to stick with those colors. So what's gonna happen is I'm gonna come in here with my pastels, and I am going to all the spaces that are inside. So I'm going to use those glue outlines as my basis, and I am going to color in pastels to fill in those spaces with just random colors. And I'm gonna try to kind of get some value as I go. So the cool thing about pastels is you can blend them with your finger and get some pretty cool tones in there, and keep going back in and get those lights and darks. And if you want to, you can also add in some lights and darks in there and then blend those. So pastels are pretty forgiving. So yeah, you can just go in, add in some whatever of the monochromatic tones that you are using for your piece. And really, I don't have a rhyme or a reason other than I'm just going in and figuring out where those places are that have, that need color within these spaces. And if there's big spaces that don't necessarily, they're not closed off shapes, what I'm gonna do is probably just put some color blending in those and fill out my piece. I really wanna see the big basic shapes that I meant to have come out. So those are the things that I'm gonna focus on, and sit back and watch this piece come to life. There you have it. My Picasso-inspired guitar, ukulele, coffee art. You can see there's that basic shape of the guitar there. There's another basic shape brought out in the guitar. Even have a big shape of the guitar there with some strings that are coming up the side. And then you can see my coffee mug here, and then I actually didn't use the glue, but I made the steam come up from it with my whites and my yellows on purpose, kind of giving almost a smoky effect that way. And then I have those repeated patterns throughout that kind of show the coffee and the guitars and the ukuleles. So there is my Picasso-inspired art. I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. I look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, remember, be kind, be courageous, and spread hope.